thought we'd do something different, something a bit light-hearted. It's open, so if there's still volunteers out there that want to grab the mic for 5 minutes, please do so. But I found 3 victims and myself to fill this session. And so when we finish this, we'll go straight into the prize draw and wrap things up. But this is intended just to lighten the mood a little bit at the end of a long day of technical conference sessions. So I hope you enjoy it. Our first speaker is Chris. So Chris, your 5 minutes starts now.
5 minutes, all right. We're going to talk about defeating ransomware. Who here is afraid of getting ransomware, especially in your enterprise department? Everybody is. You should be, because ransomware is scary as heck. Do you guys know what ransomware does? It basically creeps through your hard drive, looking at every single file you own, reads them in, encrypts them, writes them back out again. And then, just to add misery to it, they put a little file there with a .txt extension that says, read me to decrypt your file. And basically, they give you a Bitcoin account number that you have to deposit a few $1,000s into to get your files back. They'll give you the key. Sometimes. That's the key, because half of the ransomware out there doesn't have anybody at the other end of it anymore. So even after you deposit the money, you'll never see a key. Some ransomware that's been written out there was never intended to be decrypted. No key ever existed. It's an encryption-only system. They basically just write random crap to your drive. But they make it sound like if you pay them, you're going to get your money back. So the key is never to pay that encryption money. The question is, how do you stop this from happening to your environment? Anybody have any ideas? Sorry? Snapshots help, but here's the key. First off, you want to have a good antivirus. You want to have a good malware detection, right? But you also want snapshots. But with snapshots, you have one other thing. You need snapshots that are external to the server that's operating them. Because one of the things that malware has started to do, ransomware has started to do, is disable snapshots on your system and delete the old copies. The first thing the newest ransomware has been doing, disable VSS and blow away every old copy. That's scary. So one of the keys to defeating ransomware is to actually have a very long snapshot schedule. Snapshot every hour, and then after 2 days, throw those away, except keep one every day, and then after every week, keep one every month, and then after every month, keep one every year, and just have that snapshot schedule go on forever. So you keep that long snapshot schedule so you can roll backwards to before you were infected. But how do you determine when you're infected? Anybody have an idea of how to take a look specifically at an enterprise file server and figure out when it got infected? What kind of things change when somebody infects your machine? What symptom do you think you can detect? First thing you can detect is your read-write ratio is going to change drastically. Most file servers in the industry are 70, 80% read versus write. You're going to see when you start getting infected by ransomware, or when your clients get infected by ransomware, your ransomware ratio, or your ratio of read-writes is going to actually start to approach 50-50. Because they're going to read a file, they're going to write a file, they're going to read a file, they're going to write a file. So you're getting a 50-50 ratio. The next thing you're going to notice, the snapshot process is going to start getting larger and larger and larger. Because as they read and write these SIMGO files, they're not, and here's the thing, your snapshots are going to grow, however, your use space on your file system will not. And that's the key. Because they're reading 1 megabyte of file and they're writing 1 megabyte of file right over top of it. Which means your snapshots will protect that data, but the file system thinks that nothing has changed. So if your file system usage is staying flat, but your snapshot usage is going up, that's another indicator. So first, a 50-50 ratio of read-write. Second, snapshot increase while file system stays flat. And there's actually a third way to detect. If your device does compression and encryption, if your dedupable and compressible ratios start to drop to nothing, that's a third instance. So the key is you actually want to be able to detect these things. And you want to be able to set alarms on your systems to actually be able to monitor this kind of thing. Now, if you're working with like a Windows environment, you can run a feature called File Systems Resource Management, FSRM, which will let you look for certain files that get touched. And in fact, when they encrypt, these ransomware encryption software, they'll usually save the file with a filter driver, and they'll save the new file. So they read a file with an extension, they'll write the new encrypted file with a weird extension. That extension will kick off a filter, which automatically decrypts it until the trigger has hit. Because they want to encrypt as many files as they can before that trigger time happens. So if you monitor on the file server for those weird extensions to start popping up, and these are actually published out there, you can actually look and find what all the extensions are to look for. You can actually detect the event that's going to happen before it triggers. You can't unencrypt those files, but you can look at the logs of your server and your array and actually determine when your ratios start to change and be able to roll your snapshots backwards. So, in fact, I'm writing a white paper right now. It'll be out in the next 2 weeks from HP about defeating malware and how you can actually stop it. And it's all about those three things, being able to graph that data on a regular basis. The key is you have to have insights into your servers. Any questions, or it's all making sense? Any other ideas?
5 minutes is up.
My 5 minutes is up. That was fast. Thank you.
I have a sheet here because I'm going to talk about some stats, so just excuse that. But I'm going to be talking about gaming. Gaming is everywhere these days, and it's something that the storage industry really needs to pay attention to. 1/3 of the world's population are gamers today. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. And over 1 billion hours of gaming happens every month. That's insane. And so no matter if you're doing it on a PC or a laptop or a console or some type of mobile system, everybody's gaming. They're doing it to pass their time, connect with family members. It's happening everywhere. And it's something that's really exploding. And it's something that AMD has really paid attention to, and it's one thing that's really helped get us on the map. With our graphics cards, our GPUs, out of that, we have over 500 million devices, AMD-based devices out there using our graphics cards and our GPUs today to kind of keep up with this demand. This is over a $36 billion business, with over $1 billion of it going to esports alone. I don't know how many folks have ever watched esports, but it is something that is a real moneymaker. All these devices need storage, whether it's using eMMC storage just to boot something to get you to the cloud for cloud gaming, all the way up to high performance gaming storage. This is something that has become a really, really big deal. And the size of the games have exploded. So if you've looked at the recent games, I mean, they don't look like Pong anymore. You don't see a little ball going back and forth. Now you see folks that look real on the screen. You can create your own personality and persona now. Well, that takes a lot of rendering. It takes a lot of storage just to create your persona alone. There are games that use as much as 150 gigs just to install. And so that leads into, when you look into things like cloud gaming, for example. Cloud gaming at Google, they have gaming servers now. And you know, we supply a lot of those gaming servers. Well, that takes a lot of storage because now their architecture is very much like a streaming service. It's like a on-demand Netflix, Hulu type of service, which requires a lot of storage and a lot of high-performance storage. And you know, looking at persistent memory in the future for that is going to be a big deal. Another thing, that's just for enterprise. Another thing is that we're finding that client storage is now moving into the data center. If you look at the offering from Microsoft Azure on their gaming, that's kind of interesting because they are taking their Xboxes and actually racking them in the data center. So those are client processors, client graphics, client storage. All of that is now going into the data center, but is expected to stream and perform like a product you'd find in a data center. So a lot of the lines are getting blurred as far as classifications for technology and how we use systems today. And so this is something that not only got our attention, but now we're starting to see the storage industry, it's catching their attention also. So now you're seeing gaming drives that are now coming on the market that are specifically designed to handle the performance and the reliability and the capacity for storage. And this is something that's really huge for us. So take a look at it. How many folks are gamers? See, we've got over a third in here, which represents the world's population of gamers. So it's something that is exploding, something to think about in your business dealings and how you're communicating with service providers, because now more service providers are looking at how they can offer online gaming. Another thing I found that was interesting was Microsoft. They just announced with their Xbox consoles that if you don't feel like streaming from their data center, you can stream from your own Xbox. So you can set up your own little streaming type of environment just for you. So you're not carrying around gaming storage on your own to plug into somebody else's console, and you can stream from anywhere around the world on any of your devices. So this is something that's become a big industry, and I just thought it would be interesting to kind of open up everybody to the world of gaming and how important it is in the storage industry. I'm good. Should I drop the mic?
So you can see Paul roped me in at the last minute, and I said, I'll think of something. So what I want to talk about is just the importance of standards and give you a little bit of a story of where I learned that firsthand. So this morning, when Andy was getting introduced, you mentioned Texas Memory Systems, and some people said they remembered that firm. That was the first company that I started with, and the CEO had the philosophy that he would only hire people straight out of school. And like, what's the benefit of hiring people straight out of school? They're cheap. What's the downside? They don't know anything. There's one other upside. They'll do what you tell them to. So Texas Memory Systems was a unique firm, but it was completely soup to nuts. Like we built our own chassis, we built our own management API, we fabbed our own boards, and I was hired in as a software engineer for the management console. And about 6 months after I was there, our only salesperson quit, and the CEO told me, he said, well, you don't mind talking to people, now you're in sales. And so I went into sales, and I had closed one of my first big deals, and it was two 3U rack systems, 128 gigabyte SSDs, $200,000 a piece. They've gotten a little bit cheaper now. And I was going to this major data center customer and doing the installation, because we're a small firm. And when I got in there, these boxes were fairly heavy, but you could still lift them over your head. We'd always think about, why would someone pay $200,000 for this box? But I took them and was putting them in, doing the installation. And this was the first time we'd ever put our equipment in a full rack. We've always rack mounted, but we'd never quite done it in a full rack system. So I was there, the first kind of big deal that we had closed on these RAM-based SSDs, and we had mounted our rack slides off by a half a rack unit. And there was exactly 6U, and I got the first one in, and the second one I had to come out and say, well, we're going to have to drill new holes in this chassis to make it fit into this spot. And that was an interesting conversation with a customer, but it just drove home the importance of what we're doing here, of like making sure that the little details that they don't seem like they matter are just the same. And making sure that there isn't that entropy that occurs in all aspects of life if you don't come together and just agree on what a solution is going to look like. So with that, keep driving the standards forward.
Did you get the 200K for the box with the holes in it?
No, I did not.
Thank you. So you've seen the kind of things we're doing. Anybody else want to jump up? Okay. So I thought it was only appropriate that I took one of these after running around trying to press gang other people into doing it. I thought, at least I can prove I'm not the mean guy. I'm prepared to do it myself. So I want to apologize for those in the room that have heard this story many, many times. It's one that I tell at most conferences, so apologies to them. I'm going to go back to the late 90s when I was involved as the chairman of the Fibre Channel Industry Association in Europe, wandering around talking to anybody that would listen to me talking about Fibre Channel in the days before storage area networks, and we just thought Fibre Channel was a great technology. So I found myself in Munich at a conference with a session on Fibre Channel, and as I went on stage, I looked out and there was one guy in the front row and one guy in the back row, and that was my audience. So like the true professional I am, I started my presentation. It's about 45 minutes presentation. There's a lot of technology in there. But about 20 minutes into the presentation, the guy at the back got up and walked out. So trying to avoid eye contact with this poor guy in the front, but I continued my presentation as though I had an imaginary full audience. I got through to the end of the presentation and finished it, and I felt that I had to say something to this poor guy. And I said, look, I'm really sorry. I just hope it gets better for the next presenter. And he said, I am the next presenter. Thank you very much. I'm now going to invite Alex to come up, and we'll run through the prize draw. If there's any feedback forms still in the audience, we'll collect them.
Thank you. There's a couple of things I'd like to do. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I really would. It's been quite terrific, and I'm delighted to tell you, and some of you may know, we were running that persistent memory hackathon upstairs. There were more people in that persistent memory hackathon than we've had at any other hackathon, including the ones that we run in Silicon Valley. Okay? So, well done, you. And the SMB labs that we were running. We had more people in that SMB lab than we've had in the US. Well done, you again. So there's a lot of talent here, and it's a great feeling to be able to stand up here and thank you for coming. Next year we're going to be running this, and it's probably February the 3rd. Which one is it? What is the date? February the 3rd and 4th. 3rd and 4th. I thought it was the 3rd and 4th. Sorry, I was just learning a bit. So February the 3rd and 4th, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I really am. Right, we're going to do a prize draw.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Michael to come up and pick one out at random.
4 SSDs. So these are USB 3.1s. They're shock resistant. I don't know what size they are.
It's a Samsung 500 gig portable SSD.
500. There you go.
Right, Michael.
All right. Any last contributions to the survey list here?
Two guys. All appeal. I believe he just left, because I shook hands with him.
Wow, would have been interesting for a Micron guy to pick up a Samsung SSD.
Got to be present to win.
All right.
Sasha Kosolinsky. Yep.
Yay, well done.
Well done. Welcome.
In fact, we've got 2 different types of SSD here. We've got a Samsung portable and a Seagate fast SSD. Do you want to take your pick? You choose.
Give your pick.
Your choice. Oi, look at this. Look at this. Mitts off. Mitts off. Mitts off.
Stunning. Yeah. The Seagate is 1 terabyte.
Well done. Thank you. Thanks very much.
fun. It is.
Haim Shakir?
From
Shakir?
Infinidad. Awesome.
Yay. And again, take your pick. There's two types, you see. The one's a portable SSD and the other's... there we go. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Two left. Shasha Sharon from NetApp.
I'm also from NetApp, so a worthy winner.
Which is
Hello.
why he's not drawing the...
Yeah, take your pick, whichever.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback.
And the last but not least,
Last but not least,
Aaron Zwilling, Intel.
yay, well done.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
Is it a Samsung phone?
Now you got the Seagate.
You got the Seagate.
Less of an allergic reaction.
All right, thank you.
So, some of you may be aware there's actually a Storage Beers meetup taking place tonight. And you're very welcome to join as long as you sign up. It's not we're not organising it, although we are sponsoring part of it. But if you want to sign up for it, you can go online and do so. They just need to know numbers. And if you search on Storage Beers, one word, and meetup, you should be able to find the website where you can sign up. And it's being run by Greg Turetsky of Infinidad. Is that right?
Greg's away, so...
Oh, right.
Gil's running it.
Gil, right, okay. Thank you. Thank you for doing it. It's good of you. And in the spirit of being in Israel, I'm going to try out my first Hebrew word. Oh, yes. L'chaim. Is that good? Thank you. We'll see you again.